please the court, my name is Muhammad Arif Najmi bin Isam, Counsel Appellant Mila, and this is my CO Counsel Muhammad Razik bin Abdul Rashid.
May it please the court, my name is Muhammad Nazirul Ismail bin Aswa, Counsel for Respondent Mr. Katang.
I am a co-counsel Muhammad Faris Ilahi bin Muhammad Afandi.
This is a case about a contract between the parties where the respondent Mila wanted to buy Honda CR-V worth Rm 140,000. She went to Mutiara Motor Sedan Berhad and meet the salesman, Mr. Katang, to buy a car, and she explained the description of the car that he wanted to buy, which a color red metallic with the full specification. However, when the car arrived, the car come with the red in color but low specification. Mila does not want to pay the full amount of the car, but Mr. Katang insisted Mila to pay because there is already a contract between them. The issue in the case is whether Mila can sue Mr. Katang because condition that the good correspond with description. Based on the issue, Mila can sue Mr. Katang because condition that the good correspond with description. Reason, Mila can sue Mr. Katang because condition that good correspond with description. This is because Mila want red metallic and full specification, but she got the red color and lost specification. Definition is description can also be now a specification. It is a common practice where you must describe the good that you want to buy on the seller. If the seller does not sell you the good as you describe, he is a breach of condition as to description under section 15. Relate, in our case, Mila want to buy a car and she already explained to Mr. Katang what the specification that she want, but when the car arrived, she got a car with a red color, not have metallic, and lost specification, so she not satisfied what she got.
Your Honor, please refer to section 50 of the Contract Act of 1950, where there is a contract for the sale of a good. By description, there is a implant condition that a good shall correspond with the description, and if the sale is by sample as way by description is not sufficient that the wool of the good correspond with the sample if the good do not also correspond with the description. Related to our case, based on section 50 of the Contract Act 1950, Mila should get what Mr. Katang promised and the beginning of the agreement. This is because the car should match with what she want to pay. The car that was supposed to provide by Mr. Katang had to be accordance with the detailed request by Mila. Since the car provided was not the same and what was requested, then there was a breach of a contract. Your Honor, please refer to the principle that we decide in the case of Nagadas Protomodas and a COV Mr. Busan Kaishan Ltd 1911 20 SSLR 67 Fata case. He is a previous contract as between the party about the sale of floor during last time where the buyer order from the seller. The floor with the will not trademark had been sold in the bags to the buyer in the previous time. When the buyer planned to order the floor from the seller again, the order was described as the same as our previous contract. In the new contract, So, the flaw which identical in the quality was delivery to the buyer, but it did not with the same with a no trend among as previous flaw. Hell, the good that has been sold to the buyer did not correspond with the description. Related to our case, Mila want to buy car with a red color and full specification. However, the car provided by Mr. Katang for the sale transaction was contract with Mila description. Based on the discussion in the case Nagadans Protomodas and COV Mr. Busan Kaisha Ltd, the court should be held the contract is void and Mila unable to sue Mr. Katang because there are not situations where the good purchase are not the same as a detail provided.
To conclude my case, Mila can sue Mr. Katang because condition that the good correspond with the description. This is because Mila want the red metallic and full specification, but she got the red color and low specification. Related to our case, based on Section 50 of the Contract Act 1950, Mila should get what Mr. Katang promised at the beginning of the agreement. This is because the car should match what she want to pay. Related to our case, Mila want to buy car with a red color and full specification, but what she got is not certified for her. Based on discussion in the case Nagudas, Pushotumdas and COV Mitsu Busan Kaisan Ltd 1911 20 SSR 67, the court should be held that she can sue Mr. Katang because Mr. Katang has breached the agreement with what was agreed. Based on the case, when the contract between Mila and Mr. Katang is void, Mila can sue Mr. Katang because Mr. Katang has breached the contract by not meeting the implied term that the goods should correspond with the description if it sold by description. For the foregoing reason, I respectfully request that the court find in favor of the appellant and allow my client claim for damage for breach of contract as provided under Section 556 of the Sale of Goods Act.
Your Honor, I would like to direct your attention to the real issue in this case, in which the contract between Mr. Katang and Mila is valid because Mila has already accepted the offer and she already paid the deposit of the car. The reason, Mila has already agreed with the agreement made before, but when the goods arrived, she changed her mind and did not want to pay what she got. Mila's contract was cancelled due to breach. Your Honor, I wish to review the points made by the plaintiff because in this case, the offer has been rejected because a counter offer has happened. We can refer to the definition of non-acceptance, a situation in which someone fails or refuses to make a payment that they have been asked to make. Relating to the case, Mila has refused to make full payment of the car, the Mr. Katang, because Mila did not agree to pay the full amount of the vehicle because Mr. Katang did not fulfill his agreement. However, if she got what she want, she would pay the full amount. Your Honor, I wish to rebut the provision made by the plaintiff because the proper provision is to be referred to in Section 56, Sales of Goods. Please refer to Section 56 of the Sale of Goods, where the buyer wrongfully neglects or refuses to accept and pay for the goods. The seller may sue him for damages for non-acceptance. According to Section 56, Mila has refused to pay full of amount of the car as per agreement. The reason is she not satisfied with the car after arrival. Thus, she had breached the agreement by not wanting to pay.
Your Honor, the principle of a decide court case that support my argument is the case of Carter v. Power, 1795. The fact is, Mr. Carter, a seller, was hired for a voyage and given a promissory note from his employment that 10 days after the ship arrived at Liverpool, he will pay for Mr. Carter a certain sum, provided her process continue and does his duty as second mate in the ship from here to the port of Liverpool. Mr. Carter began sailing the ship as second mate for about 6 weeks. Yet after that he died before it arrived at Liverpool. Mr. Carter's wife brought an action for a proportionate part of his due wages for the substantial amount of the voyage on which he acted as second mate. The help is the wife action failed. Payment was on condition that he worked the ship to Liverpool. Since he did not fulfill this condition, the widow was entitled to nothing. Nombor 14. Related to our case, Mila has refused to pay the full of amount of the car. Based on the judgment of Carter v. Power 1795, the court should decide that the contract is valid because Mr. Carter already accepted Mila's request to sell her red car. Therefore, Mr. Carter's acceptance of Mila's request is considered as a formation of contract. Mila promised to pay Mr. Carter when Mr. Carter provided a red car for Mila. Therefore, Mr. Carter is entitled to receive payment for the red car that has been provided. Conclusion. To conclude my case, Mila has already agreed with the agreement made before, but when the goods arrived, she changed her mind and did not want to pay what she got. Mila's contract was cancelled due to breach. According to Section 56, Mila has refused to pay full of amount of the car as per the agreement. The reason is she not satisfied with the car after arrival. Thus, she has breached the agreement by not waiting to pay. Relating to our case, Mila has refused to pay the full of amount of the car. Based on the judgment of Carter v. Power, the court should decide that the contract is valid and Mr. Carter can sue Mila because she refused to pay the car. Where she already accepted offer means she had agreed on what she would get later. So, Mila is not able to sue Mr. Carter for breach of contract and claim for damages because the contract between Mr. Carter and Mila is valid. For the foregoing reason, I respectfully request that the court find in favor of the respondent and dismiss the appeal made by the appellant and approve the validation of the agreement between Mr. Carter and Mila under Section 56 of Sale of Goods Act. Therefore, Mr. Carter cannot be sued by Mila under for the breach of contract. Thank you very much.